Hey y'all, I'm Tamara. This is my channel, I'd Rather Be Stitching, and today I have another FlossTube Extra for you. I just wanted to tell you all about the Downton Abbey digital retreat that I went to. It's actually called a Retreat in a Box from the Black Needle Society, and I just wanted to tell you how it worked in case you've never done one before, and then let you know what I thought about it. So thank you for joining me here today. And before we go, if you would just like and subscribe and share this video so that other people would be a little more informed about this kind of thing, that would be great, because I had no idea what to expect when I signed up for this. I didn't know if it was going to be... I knew that the price was a lot better than an in-person retreat, which, you know, makes it more accessible to a lot of people who are on a tighter budget. Also, you don't have to worry about travel, hotel rooms, any of that stuff. So that makes it more affordable. But I didn't know still if it was going to be worth the money, because I'm like, online stuff, you know, why am I paying so much? But I'm just going to tell you how it worked. Excuse me. And then I'll tell you what I thought about it at the end. So it started on Wednesday, April 9th in the afternoon. They opened the chat rooms on Zoom, and there was that was the only time during the retreat that you could get, you know, technical troubleshooting in case you were having issues with your camera or your microphone or anything. That was the only time you could do it. So I did, you know, start right away so that I could make sure that all my equipment was working. And what I didn't know was, like, I know just how to do a basic Zoom meeting, how to join it, how to set it up, whatever. But they were using an extra feature of Zoom that I had never used before. I don't remember the name of it right now, so I'll just see if my husband can pop a little message in the editing, because I don't know how to do that part yet. But we'll just put it on screen, whatever it's called. But what it was, they were called breakout chat rooms. But when you use this little extra feature of Zoom, it made a little cartoony representation of Downton Abbey. And then it had the rooms labeled, like Lord Grantham's study, Lady Grantham's bedroom, Lady Sybil's bedroom, whatever. There were different rooms like that, but those were the actual chat rooms. And if you had the feature going, I think it's called Weibo, but I could be wrong. But if you had that feature going, you could see who was in those chat rooms without entering them. I did not know anything about that feature. I didn't have it going. So what happened was I ended up sitting in the lobby, apparently, for like an hour and a half, and nobody talked in the lobby. They would log on, turn off their mic, turn off their video, and it would just show them sitting there. And occasionally somebody would pop on and ask a question, and then they'd turn off their mic, turn off their camera, and that was it. I didn't know that I was sitting in a lobby. I was like, this is really lame. Why is nobody talking? You know, the socializing aspect is one of the things I was really looking forward to, because I don't really know any local cross-stitchers. I know one lady in a nearby town, but we didn't have a car for 3 months, and I could never go hang out with her. And she doesn't do technology at all, like not even email, so I couldn't be like, hey, let's do a Zoom stitching session or whatever. So, and then there's Gabby, but she's been too busy to craft lately. So I was really looking forward to that part of the thing, and I didn't understand why nobody was talking. I found out, like, that night, I finally, when I went back in and people were still not talking in that part, then this little notice popped up and it said, oh, we have breakout chat rooms now. Do you want to join one? And I'm like, sure. I don't know what that is, but sure. So I just like clicked on one that showed a few people sitting in there. And there were people in there actually talking with their video on while they stitched. So I got to, find out some more information at that point, about the rooms, and they're the ones that told me about the extra little feature that showed the Downton Abbey house. So, but by then, I can't remember why I had to go, but I had to go because we were doing other things. My birthday was the very next day, and Passover started on Saturday, so there was a lot going on all at once with, all of those activities. But for whatever reason, I had to go. I couldn't stay on it long after I finally found people. So, I think it was an event, but anyway. So that I didn't like. I didn't like not knowing where the people were and how to sit and actually chat with people. So then another feature of the event were the challenges. I think there were a total of 20 challenges, and those were like stitch on a project with a ship, stitch on a project with text, stitch on a project that has black, things like that. Those were the challenges. And how those worked was about 5 minutes before the challenge started, because these were all timed at certain times. So those were the scheduled events. So about 5 minutes before the event was supposed to start, they would put a password up on the Facebook group. And you would have to handwrite that password on a piece of paper, and then whatever project you were going to work on, you just lay the password on there with the project and show your starting point. And then you have an hour. So you would stitch for an hour, take a picture of your final progress, after the hour, and put that picture up, and then count your stitches. And then you get, points based on how many stitches you did. It was like every 25 stitches, you got another point. So those were the actual challenges. And there were drawings for prizes for the winners of those. And then there was another feature called a stash dive. Those were also scheduled, and there were themes. Like the first one was called a Downton hunt, and the things you had to find in your stash, you had to find a pattern or project that had whatever the list was of things they put up. So like the Downton hunt had like deer, fox, what else? I actually kept the screenshot of that. Saddle, horseshoe, top hat, bird, rifle, whatever. So there was a whole list of things, and you had 20 minutes to find any of those things in your stash, and you had to stay in one room. Whatever room you were in, you had to stay in that room, and you couldn't have anyone bring you stuff, and you couldn't have help. So you would just gather all the patterns that you could find that matched those prompts. Then you take pictures of them, like 4 or 5 items in one picture, because you'd have to caption it at the end, and you had only 20 minutes to do all of this. So you take your pictures. I think the most I took was like 4 pictures, and it was like 11 or 12 items total was the most I did. But then you upload the pictures, and then you had to caption them, like whatever prompt you were meeting in that pattern. You had to put all of the ones that you were meeting, and then you scored yourself. You said, this is how many points I think I get, whatever. So those were scheduled events. And then they had a third type of event called a digital dive. I only did one of those because I wasn't really interested in that part of it. But that was the same kind of thing. They would have a topic, and the one I did was called Window Shopping in the Village. And there was just, again, a list of things. But this time you had to find them online, and they had to be in stock. So, and there were point values for those. So, there were some that were worth 1 point, I think 5 points, and then 10 points or something like that. And you find whatever that meets that prompt, screenshot it, and then again, you have to upload it and caption your stuff and say, these are the points I think I got, and then they would check it at the end. But you only had, 20 minutes or whatever to do that too. So those were the competitive events. And then between those, the chat rooms were open 24 hours a day, and then every night they had a Facebook Live event where they would draw prizes for the winners for the day for all the different events and stuff. And all the events that you entered, you got entries for the grand prizes at the very end. Um, sorry, I'm checking my notes to make sure I covered everything. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, they also held Facebook Live events before the beginning of every one of the other events, like before the stash dive and before the digital dives. They'd have a little mini event so that they could um, randomly call numbers. We were all assigned a number when we joined, and those were the door prizes. So if they called your number, you had to be online during that event or you wouldn't get your door prize. So I did win one door prize, which is pretty cool. It's a pack of finishing ribbons, which I've never used before because I've only done a couple of little finishes recently, and one was a magnet and one was a little pillow with no trim or anything. So other than that, I've just made things that were magnets and made things that got framed. So I'm actually looking forward to trying some of the finishing ribbons and little pom-poms and chenille stuff that people do. I haven't done any of that yet. So that is something I am going to try doing in the future. But anyway, so this whole retreat, there were 20 challenges, excuse me. I think I did 12 of them. They had one late at night every night because we're East Coast and they went by like Central Time or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to bed. I'm not staying up for that. But I think I did 12 of them, and I won one prize for one of the challenges, and that's going to be I think it's a gift card or a gift certificate to Bestitch Me, but I don't really remember if that's the right place. I haven't gotten it yet. So I enjoyed the challenges a lot. I enjoyed the stash dives, but they were more stressful because I'm very competitive, and I was like, grr, I need to find everything. And if you didn't get your pictures uploaded and captioned in time, then you didn't get credit at all. So I'm not sure if I actually got credit for one of them, but they were higher stress, but they were still fun to do. It's like a little scavenger hunt. I didn't end up going to the chat rooms at all after that first night, except the very last day, like almost at the end of the retreat. I popped back in, and I think by that point, everybody was too tired to really talk because they were sitting there with their cameras on, but nobody was talking. And I heard other people say that when they do retreats, by the end of it, everyone's kind of worn out from all the socializing. I didn't experience that. We were so busy with everything else and my birthday and all of that I didn't get to really enjoy the chat room aspect of it. So that was disappointing, but I did enjoy the challenges. Those were really fun. I learned that I can sit still for 1 hour and stitch on something without a lot of problems. Usually I don't sit still very long. I'll stitch like 30 minutes and get up and wander away and do stuff and then go back to it. But when I'm like focusing on something and competing, I can sit still for an hour and stitch on something. I still don't stitch fast, but I did make a lot of progress on the retreat piece because with these challenges, I worked on the retreat piece and the spring sampler that I'm doing. Those are the only two pieces I worked on for the whole 5 days. And total, I did more than like 1,400 stitches, which is not a lot for a lot of people. I know that there are people who can do 2,000 in a weekend. And one lady on these competitions, I'm not kidding, she did like 300 stitches in an hour. And I'm like, how? Like, I would find the biggest chunks of just solid block stitching you can do, and that's what I would work on, which is the quickest. And she was doing like 300 stitches in an hour, and I was like, I don't understand how. She is magical. That is amazing. But 1,500 stitches for 5 days, that was a lot for me. So I was very pleased with that. So overall, I did like the stuff in the box. There was one thing, I don't know what it's for, the thread winder. I still haven't looked that up. So I liked all the other stuff. A lot of boxes that I've seen online when I've gone to unboxing videos and stuff, I haven't really liked what's in them, but I liked this one. Hold on one second, y'all. Okay, sorry, y'all. My husband just got back. So anyway, overall, I wouldn't normally pay for a normal, like, stitching box, because they, you know, the ones I've seen, I don't know what all the prices are, but I've seen them, they're like $50 to $70 a piece. And I don't like a lot of the stuff in them because they put coffee mugs and things like that, and I don't drink coffee. And I've already got a cabinet full of coffee mugs. So I did like the stuff in this box. And I really, really had a great time at this retreat. Despite the fact that I didn't do the chat rooms, which I really wanted to do, I loved this retreat. I loved the interactions I did have. The events were great. The prizes that they gave away were amazing, and they gave away a ton of prizes. I didn't win, except the one challenge and then the one door prize, but they gave away a lot of door prizes to people. And the only thing I think should have been done a little differently with the door prizes is that they used a random number picker for those, and she didn't have it on, you know, the setting where after a number has been called, it won't call that number again. It wasn't set like that. So there were several people who just kept winning stuff, and then there was a lot of people who were like, well, I didn't win anything. And there was almost 300 people in the Facebook group, and you could only be in there if you had joined the retreat. So I don't know how many of those people actually showed up to do the events, because I assume some of them just wanted the box. But it seemed like the most people in any of the live events was about 80. So I don't know how many people were actually attending these live events total, but there was a lot of people who didn't get prizes. Excuse me. So I think that they should have had it, you know, with that many people, I think they should have had it just where once your number was drawn, it wouldn't call you again. Because if the people weren't online, they didn't get their door prize. So whenever they called a group of numbers, if only 2 people were online and said, I'm here, then they would call a bunch more and see if those people were online. So they probably would have gotten through all the numbers and still been giving duplicate prizes to duplicate people. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. I don't know if you know what I'm saying or not, but more people would have gotten prizes rather than 10 people getting a bunch of prizes if they had it where once the number was called, it wouldn't draw that number again. They did actually do it like that for the final Facebook event, which was good, but I think all of them should have been like that, and then probably everyone, if they were online, would have gotten a prize. And I'm not upset because I did get a prize, but I just, you know, it seemed like it would have been more fair if everybody had an opportunity to get called. And I know those number pickers are skewed because I used one to set up my WhipGo board, and you know, there's only 25 squares on it, so it was only numbers 1 to 25, and I had to push it again and again and again and again and again to get the last like 5 numbers to ever get called. So it just kept calling like 1 and some other number. But anyway, so overall, I definitely had a great time. I definitely loved the box. I didn't like that it didn't have fabric or floss for the retreat piece. A lot of people, this was their first retreat, they were saying, and they thought that the fabric for the retreat pattern and the floss for the retreat pattern were going to be included in the kit, and it wasn't. There was fabric and floss, but it was just like fabric and floss to put in your stash. It didn't go to the piece. So I didn't like that aspect of it. It was a surprise, you know, because I'm on a tight budget. So when I bought the box, I thought everything I needed was going to be in it. And then like 3 months later, they're like, surprise, here's the supplies list you need. And I was like, wait, what? I thought that was part of it. So now that I know, it's not that big a deal because I do have fancy floss and fabric from the box that I'll get to use in the future. But when I was expecting it to be part of the kit, that was a surprise. And there were a few other people who said, yeah, I didn't like that. I thought it was part of it. So I think that was the only, well, no, that and not really knowing how the chat room thing worked, I think are the only two things that I had a problem with. Now I know those, though, so, if I get to do the next ones, that won't be a big deal. But, so yeah, they are doing 3 more for Downton Abbey. The next 3 springs in a row, they'll be doing the rest of them. I don't know if I'll get to participate because, like I said, it's kind of expensive for our budget, but it was a lot of fun. And if you have never done a retreat before, this is a much more affordable way to do a retreat. And if you have done a retreat but you didn't know about a digital one, it was a lot of fun. I would love to do more chat rooms in the future. And another thing I think is really good, a good aspect to the digital retreat is if you go to a retreat, if you are, most of us are introverted, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of cross-stitchers are introverted. And if you go to a retreat, you either have to stay in your hotel room or go be part of the retreat. With the digital thing, you had a schedule of when the things were going to take place, and you could go to them if you wanted or not if you didn't want to. If you didn't ever want to socialize extra and do the chat rooms, you never have to do that. If you just want to dip your toe in and pop in and lurk, with your camera and your microphone off, but still see other people, there were people who did that. It wasn't a problem. You don't have to go in and interact if you don't want to. If you're too shy or whatever, you don't have to do that. So I really like that aspect of it. You can pick the level of interaction that you want with other people. If you're sitting in a stitching room with a group of people, you're kind of forced into interaction if they're not rude, which I'm assuming they wouldn't be rude. They're there to socialize. So, but if you weren't ready to talk, you wouldn't have people like, hey, what are you working on? Oh, can I see it? Where'd you get that? Oh, I love that. Whatever. You wouldn't have people basically forcing an interaction with you. Not that they're doing it to be mean. They're just doing it to be friendly. But if you're not ready for that, you might be uncomfortable with that. I'm a conundrum because I am very outgoing in some ways, but very shy and reserved in others. So like in a group of people, I'm going to be pretty quiet and kind of hang back and just watch. But if someone talks to me, I'll gladly talk. I love talking to people. But I sometimes just have a hard time like starting a conversation with somebody. I'm very awkward at that. But I definitely loved it. If you've not done them, you should try it. They have different themes. They do a Harry Potter one, but they're pretty near the end of that series. They're doing an in-person murder mystery one, which I would love to go to, but it's like in the Midwest somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So hopefully I'll get to do the next ones for Downton Abbey. And if they have another one that's, starting, that's digital and interesting to me, I would definitely give that a consideration. So if you've never done it, it was well worth it. In case you're curious, it was like $150 for the box. They did charge shipping on top of that. That's probably based on where you live. There were international people who are part of it, so they do ship internationally. But yeah, it's a lot more affordable than an in-person retreat. It's longer than an in-person retreat, from my understanding. Those are usually just a weekend. This was like almost 5 days. And it was totally worth it as far as I'm concerned. So, Black Needle Society, Retreat in a Box. You should check them out. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll join me for a normal FlossTube sometime if you haven't ever been to one of those, or been to one. If you haven't ever been to my channel for a normal FlossTube, I should have one of those loaded soon. So thank you again for joining me. like and subscribe, and I will see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.